Cool. I ain't gonna lie. I gotta like remember what I'm even like what I'm questioning you about.
Okay.
Okay, so give me a second. All right. I'm ready.
Okay.
I'm here. I'm here. I'm back. Welcome, Ruby.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Welcome to the Live Authentically podcast.
Yes.
How are you today?
I'm pretty good. How are you?
I'm wonderful.
Yeah.
Wonderful. That's great. So, introduce yourself a little bit and talk about kind of who you are.
My name is Ruby. I go by the girl upstairs. I am a multidisciplinary artist, so I make music, I write songs, I do fashion, I make fashion, design houses, like pretty much anything that I can put my hands on, I try to make an art out of that.
Yeah. So, a multi-dimensional creator, pretty much.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. And that's very cool because I'm the same way. Like anything I can
Yeah.
get my hands on, man, like I'm going to create.
Yeah.
And I think it's beautiful because to me, it's like it all comes from one source and it all comes from one, creativity to me comes from an infinite source that is like within us all.
Mm-hmm.
And so no matter what you create, whether it's like you're cooking something or whether
Mm-hmm.
you're making music, it's
Mm-hmm.
coming from the same place, right?
I feel that.
So that's how I've always thought about it, and I think that's allowed me to kind of expand into all these different art forms as well, like, and make things and just like it's the same place, you know?
Yeah, because it's just you. It's your expression of whatever you're feeling or whatever you want to express. I know
Yeah.
that's what I use my art for a lot. That's really how I started writing music, is that I had a feeling that I wanted to express, but I felt like in my regular everyday life where I'm like considerate of people's feelings and I'm just very like sweet and like an easygoing person, that I couldn't express some of these like very very dark feelings.
Yeah.
And so I started rapping.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. And so how has rapping really allowed you to tap into your authenticity?
I give myself permission to I just give myself permission to do it.
Yeah.
So I think because it was something that was like pent up inside of me, it's like things like fear and anger, especially rage.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't really have an outlet for that. But when I will rap, I can tap into these feelings and I can talk all of my shit that I'm saying,
Yeah.
and then still be myself. And after I've got it off, it's like, okay, now I'm balanced again.
Yeah.
So yeah.
That's what's up. Yeah, I love that. And that's really beautiful to me because I think, authenticity in music and art is me. It's like how I express myself. It's my safe space. It's my catharsis. Like it's all of it. Like when I'm sitting here in the studio and I'm making stuff, I could get lost in the music. Like I could sit here all day and play music. Like
That's
just
beautiful.
like and create things and create one song after another or art piece after another, and it's just all that's what I feel. That's the energy that I'm moving through and everything like that. And being able to express that is same thing for me. I get to express my authenticity and all of that. So I think it's beautiful that, it's the same for you and you've turned those kind of repressed emotions into something beautiful.
Not repressed.
Yeah, not no more.
Majorly.
Not no more.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly. Now it's out
Yeah.
there. It's in there. So I love that, and that's dope.
Yeah.
So talk to me a little bit about kind of your artist journey and how you got into just creativity and everything that you do.
It's really hard to say where my creative journey started, because as long as I can remember, I always had my hand on something. I wanted to be an illustrator. I remember that when I was really young. And so I'd always draw and paint and things like that. And as I got older, I moved into design, and I kind of told you how I stumbled into that, but I first came into music while I was doing fashion, because I would just be at the sewing machine and I would be mad. I would be at the sewing machine and I would be mad about just things that's going on. Like there's something about sewing,
I
like
just imagine you like sewing something like angry.
I
just, like,
was, and it's just like something that's joyful to me, but like it's so, how can I say, my body's doing it, and so my mind is free, and unfortunately, it's free to think about all the things that I'm not allowing myself to really deal with, and so I would just be listening to my music or whatever, and I would just start going, and then I'm like, wait a minute, like this is kind of fire, and I would stop and like write it down, play with it a little bit, but I never really fully stepped into music, I didn't allow myself to go there because I felt like you have to have one thing. You have to have one thing. And I had already built a career and was building a career in fashion. And I felt like, if I do this other thing, I'm not going to be able to do this. And I have already dedicated myself to this. But what I've learned in losing that entire like part of my life is that I let that go and I was able to get it all back plus music. So all the vision that I have for the things I want to do with my music and with my artistry and things like that is everything I wanted to do with fashion, except now that I allow myself to do music, it's like a broader vision. So that's my latest realization.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's beautiful. And it's not like fashion really goes away. Like, it's still part of you.
Yeah.
And it's still part of, your creative journey and everything like that. Like, you were even talking to me earlier before we did this, was like, you're starting to still develop pieces for your next drops and everything like that.
Yeah.
And so what does your clothing brands have like names and everything like that?
So my brand that I have right now is called The Fashion Dealer, and it is a styling business. So it's more geared towards styling and affordability. And with that brand, I want to show people how you can really still be stylish and also be sustainable. Like the business as having
You dying, bro? You're on a roll. You're on a roll, G.
Cameron said nope.
Okay. Give me one second. I gotta get the camera back online. Crisis averted. Crisis averted. Okay. Yeah, talk to me about your brands.
So The Fashion Dealer is my secondhand styling brand, and I came up with that brand because I just love thrifting and I love fashion.
Yeah.
And there's so many thrift stores and there's so much clothes that as a designer I was really struggling with the concept of sustainability and like creating more things. And as things moved even more towards mass fashion and fast fashion, I wanted to show people that you could still get really good quality clothes and design at a comparable price to the things that you're getting from either mass fashion shops or even some of the, like, I wouldn't say designer, but like a higher end brand shops, and you can still get stuff that's very cute and more importantly that's quality. Yeah,
I agree with all of that. And that, like I was speaking to earlier, before I even started making clothing, I like all of my wardrobe was thrifted, you know. And it's just because there's so many fire pieces
there is
that you can just find and you're like, yo, who gave this shit up?
And where did this come from?
Like, where did they come from?
Yes.
And so like and at deals, man. Like at deals. So like I will say, like, thrifting culture has very much so evolved into a crazy like price gouging culture nowadays, which we can speak on, but more importantly, it was not always like that.
Yeah.
And it was not always like that. And I remember going to like flea markets and shit like that and being like, yo, I can get 10 of these pants for $30. Like, you know what I'm saying? It's just like, yeah, let me get that. And I would cop the most fire pieces because I would be able to get so much stuff for such a, not a lot.
Low price, yeah.
But they would always be fire pieces, and people were like, where'd you get that shit, man? I'm like, man, had to be there type thing, you know what I'm saying?
You can never get that again.
Right, it's so authentic, and it's so like just one of one kind of thing. And so I love that whole, idea, and that whole just making clothing from that idea. And that's exactly why, I'm integrating more thrifting culture back into Live Authentically, because even though we are, we make clothes and stuff like that, which again, I make clothes because back then there was not like quality like things that you could get like essentials of, like even these like shirts or hoodies and stuff like that. You can definitely get shirts, but like I would say hoodies, I was not finding a lot of good
quality
hoodies.
Ones, wow.
Yeah. And so I was like, all right, well, I don't want to buy from like all these other like fashion places. Like, I'd rather learn how to make it and learn what goes into it.
Oh, wow.
And then create quality pieces that are going to last as well, because that's the biggest thing in fast fashion too. It's called fast fashion for a reason. Like,
yes.
You get it and then it immediately breaks down after like 2 months kind of thing. And then you're back to buying more of that stuff, right?
Exactly.
And so it's like, it's not very conscious of, how much you're actually getting out of these materials and everything like that, and the work that's getting put into them. And so like all that has been my number one thing, no matter what. Like every piece that I make, it's got to be quality. It's got to be quality, and it's got to be, it's got to be able to sustain itself for a good amount of time, you know. But I love all of that. That's
So
dope.
on that, can I ask you a question about your live authentically design process? So like, what, I know you're saying that you're incorporating more of the thrifted pieces in, but what is your like design inspiration when it comes to your new stuff that you have coming out?
Yeah. So I really don't know. You know,
Okay.
I could guess.
Okay.
I could really give you a guess in the sense of where they came from. But I think it really comes down to the experiences that I was having and the environments that I was in. That always leads to creation of I feel like as an artist, as a creator, you're just a byproduct of all of the things you're taking in, right? You know, like you are what you eat kind of thing, but like less about that phrase and more so everything that you create, you put out there into the world and everything like that is culminated of the energies that you're cultivating as well that are cultivated around you, right? So when I was at App State in Boone, there's a much different energy that I was in, like kind of taking in, and a lot more of a nature and just like kind of like explosion of color. That's the best way to explain it.
Okay.
And when I came back here to Fayetteville, for some reason it kind of made itself more design heavy. Like it became more like, man, like all those drawings over there, like those were all, that's where all these pieces come from. Is like these drawings and these different designs and like me sketching my book and like going to New York and stuff like that. And so the best way to explain it is like the difference between natural creativity, like out in nature, and like concrete creativity.
I love that.
You know what I'm saying?
That's the place that I design from too.
Yeah.
So,
And so it's like I don't like it either makes sense or it doesn't. Like it's concrete like creativity. There's something beautiful like New York City is a beautiful, interesting place because it's very more so concrete and humans and like that kind of nature rather than like out here in North Carolina or when you go in the mountains or anywhere really. It's like it's nature. It's out here in the forest. It's out here and stuff like that. And so I think it was like kind of merging those two and like, you know, taking inspiration from both and incorporating that into my designs. And then as well as just the experiences I was having, like, you know, kind of growing into my authentic self in the sense of learning who I am authentically and then really figuring out that music, creativity, art, and stuff like that. That's who my authentic being is, right? That's what makes me who I am. And so this whole next job, all these designs are all about creativity and are all about authentic creative expression.
Okay.
And so that's why I love, you know, having you on here and having people that have been through the artistic journey and kind of have experienced, you know, themselves awakening into their authentic self through creativity, like, because that experience alone is a whole different world that like I don't know if a lot of people are shedding light on in the sense that of necessarily the truths and authentic realities of it all. So after saying all that, here comes a very hard question.
Okay.
What are the authentic parts of your journey as an artist that social media doesn't really put out there, that nobody really talks about, and kind of even like the darkness of it that has been in your journey? How has that affected you, as well as go into a little bit of that?
Well, I will say the major turning point in my life that really, I don't want to say showed me or brought out, but how I will explain it is that, as I was saying, I had a fashion business before, and I was feeling called in my spirit to walk away from that business. And me having put so much love and passion into that, I was afraid to do that because I can't see what's on the opposite side of that. And it's like I have spent so much time in my life building this and, you know, all these plans that I have for this. How can I now just give it away, especially when it's not going bad, you know? And pretty much situations in my life were put me in a place where I was very uncomfortable. Yeah. So I had to change. And I walked away from my whole business, my friends, my family, like pretty much everyone that I was connected to at that time, like, was my whole world, how I describe it, was crumbling around me. And it really felt like that, in the sense of, I was feeling lonely. I was feeling very vulnerable because I felt like I had been betrayed by a lot of people, and I felt like nobody really understood me. And at the same time, it's like, you know, the food that's being thrown into the lion's den, you're just being picked apart. And so I took time away, and I just completely isolated myself and kept leaning into the question of, like, I know that I had always known, like, when I was doing fashion, something, there's like something inside of me that I'm like, it's not, there's something inside that's like, it's not right. I feel that there's something, but I don't know what it is, and I don't know how to fix that, because I know that that one thing is affecting all of these areas in my life that I want to change, but I didn't know what it was. And so going through that process, I ended up leaving. I was in, where was I? Cary at the time, and I had just moved into a new place. Ended up having to break my lease after, I think I was there for like 3 months, some crazy shit. Yeah. And so, like, having invested my whole life in doing this, I went to Chicago. I was just led by the Spirit to go there. Never been there a day in my life. Drove up there, just my car and me, and, like, had to just go through the trenches in Chicago. I was homeless there for 3 months, and living, like, between hotels, Airbnbs, like, just around, like, in my car. And even though it was, like, it was the hardest time in my life, but it was also the most special time in my life to me, and the most beautiful, because every day, like, when I'm running a business, every day I wake up and I think about what I have to do for that business. Like, I'm thinking about things that are in this life, Yeah. And when I was in that space, and I even talk about it like it's so removed, because when I was there, I felt like I was removed from the world, really. I felt like I was removed from the world, because I will just have to wake up and worry about myself. Like, I had to worry about my mental soundness. I was essentially, I feel like I was being trained to not worry about, like, where my next meal is coming from, or how something is going to happen. It's more like that was my spiritual journey, when I had to allow God to do those things, and actually rely on Him and have faith. Yeah. So it's like, when I go back to being afraid of, like, walking away from my business, because I couldn't see what's on the other side. Yeah. But now here I am, and I'm so happy. Like, yeah. I can't imagine, like, if I would have just, like, been so headstrong and, like, hammering out to do this, like, I would have been down in the dumps, yeah. because I'm hanging on to something that's not meant for me. But it was really a space of, like, God says, and I'm very much paraphrasing, because I don't know the Bible word for word, but it's like, I give you these gifts. Yeah. So basically, like, who am I to say I'm not going to give it back? Because if God gave it to you, you can only be so humble to give it back. Yeah. And then, like, whenever I was able to give it back, I was, like, blessed 10 times more, with not only being able to discover a new gift and allow myself to pour into music in the ways that I didn't before because of fear, but I felt like that experience broke me all the way down of who I was. Yeah. And so I was there during the rebuilding. So nobody can tell me what I'm made of, because I was there. Yeah. I know what's there. I know what I'm built on. I know what's in my heart. I know what my purpose is. So nobody else can take that from me. And I think that is something that I was really missing. And when I understand, like, what I'm made of at my core, I can then make better decisions, and also, like, engage with people in a way that's more authentic to myself, and go towards energies that are more authentic to that. So, yeah.
Wow, Ruby. Goodness gracious.
Yeah.
That is wild.
Yeah.
That is insane. And to hear that, like, there's so much energy that I feel from that. Like, just you telling your whole story. I want to ask, so what do you think was, first off, I want to ask, like, how did you get into fashion, in the sense of, like, was it, you were talking about, like, how, like, it was like a personality test, and this was, like, kind of like, it was like, hey, you're supposed to do fashion, mm-hmm. rather than it was like, I want to do, and I'm sure there was like, I want to do fashion, mm-hmm. but, like, was it like you were voluntold to kind of do it?
Well, for y'all who don't know, I went into fashion because I took a personality test in 6th grade. It was mandatory, and fashion designers at the top of the occupation suggestions for me based off of like what I liked or whatever. And at that time, I think I still was like wanting to be an illustrator, and I was floating. I was just out here. Was I like 10 or 11? So I wasn't thinking about that in a sense of like, this is real life. It's just like, oh, they're just my dreams, things I want to do. I'm freaking learning math.
But to me, that's crazy that like a personality test you took when you were 10 years old kind of created this construct now from like until you just kept growing into it. And it's like, yeah, I guess, okay, yeah, I'm a fashion designer, that kind of thing. And that is insane, because like it's like those things that we do as a kid, or those things that we start associating who we are, our identities as a kid, and then we grow into it, and then we're like, wait a minute. Yeah. And so it's like all of society telling you who you are and what you're supposed to be doing and everything like that. And then, because I've had a similar journey in other areas of my life, and, same thing, I was like, okay, this is what I want to do and everything like that. And I was like, no, this is not making me happy. And then seeing everything crumble in your life and then rebuilding it. And I think that does give you such a foundation in the sense of self and who you truly are. Yeah. Because it's like, you can't tell me, like, I saw myself like go from here to here, and I built myself to go from here to here. And I think, I'm still in that, like, I'm still in my building process, right? Of building who the next identity I want to be is, right? And even though, it is just an identity, it's still the way we move in these vehicles, right? Yeah. And so, like, that's beautiful that, I'm sure it was a lot of stuff that whole experience was. Oh, but to see it from this perspective, it's very beautiful to hear how that evolved into the person that you are today.
Wow. And on the topic of the fashion, I feel like it appealed to me when I started looking into it, because at that time I wanted to express something that was myself, and I hated talking. So like fashion is your first impression. So it's like I want to express something, and just listening to you talk kind of showed me that that's like the pattern, is that I wanted to express something, and so I went to fashion, and I want to express something different. That's why I went to music. And I think saying yes to something, because I don't think any of the things even that maybe like you passed on, they weren't authentic to you at some point in time. Yeah, but still saying no and being able to move on and like grow is a very interesting place to be.
It is. And it's the human experience, and that's why I said, like, it's the identity I wanna pursue right now. You know what I'm saying? 'Cause, like, my uncle always says a phrase. It's like, just because who you are today is who you want to be doesn't mean that'll be the same person you want to be tomorrow, right? And it's like just living moment to moment and experiencing yourself in every moment. And so that's beautiful. And wow.
And not judging yourself. That's something I learned too. Is not judging yourself and not judging your thoughts. Because like,
it's a hard thing to do.
You can have some negative thoughts, but just allowing something to like exist in your space and be like, but also say, I don't have ownership of that.
Yeah, you're just aware of it. You're just like,
I am mad as heck. But like, that's not me. I can't let it stick.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, that's so beautiful. Thank you for sharing. Beautiful journey.
Thank you for having me. It just felt like the right space to do it. So I'm happy to have been able to share it with you.
Thank you so much. Well, is there anything else you want to leave anybody that watches this?
I will say, don't be afraid to start over. Don't be afraid to start over every single day, brand new, like with a completely different mindset. Like, you don't necessarily have to worry about how things are gonna be figured out for you, because they say even the crows don't worry about their next meal, and they are taken care of. And so you are treasured, and you are special for just being yourself, and not because of what you can do for other people or what other people can get from you.
Thank you so much, Ruby.
Thank you.
Really appreciate you. And where can they find you if they search for you?
Oh, you can find me on Instagram or YouTube at thegrlupstairs, no I in girl, and .com coming soon.
Cool. Well, we'll leave a link to all of her socials down here in the description of the video. And thank you for watching the Live Authentically podcast.
Hey.
Dope.
That was beautiful.